Today, I'm going to be showing you how to drastically improve your FPS in Fortnite and the overall performance of your PC. If these tips do work for you, consider subscribing. I upload tips for gameplay, ping, and FPS guides. So the first thing you're going to do is go down here and close any extra things you have open on your PC. I have Ear Trumpet and 2 clipping softwares open, along with OBS. If you aren't clipping your game, or if there's anything extra in here, I suggest closing it. Discord is okay, and clipping softwares are okay. If your GPU application or any other recording softwares or anything else that you don't recognize is in here, I suggest closing it. The next thing you want to do is you want to remove any extra apps. This specifically applies to people that have an SSD card and not a hard drive. So SSD cards improve load times by keeping files rendered on the SSD. If you have an SSD, if it has all these files open that you don't need, then I suggest removing them. Example, if I don't play GTA that much, I might as well remove it because it's open on my SSD and all the files just sitting there rendered and it's taking up space and power of my SSD. The next thing you want to do is you want to go to your settings on your PC, go to System, scroll all the way down to Graphics Settings. Now, if there's anything here that you don't recognize or you don't want high performance on, then remove it. Accelerates your GPU power and adds graphics performance and pushes your GPU to the maximum power it can take. You just want to go here. You want to go to your local disk. You want to go to Program Files, Epic Games, open the Fortnite tab. You go up here, search Fortnite. You're going to see all of these. You want to add all of these there. Now that we have all of these there, we just want to make sure that they're on high performance. If you have a slower PC, these ones that say launcher, the easy anti-cheat launcher can be on let Windows decide, and the Battle Eye launcher can be on let Windows decide, or power saving depending upon how good your PC is, but you want Fortnite and Fortnite launcher to be on high performance. The next thing you want to do is you want to go in the control panel. You're going to want to go to hardware and sound. You're going to hit power options, and you're going to want to, it's going to be on balanced by default. You're going to want to put it on high performance. You want to have it on high performance, or you want to have, some people have the option for ultimate performance right here. I used to have that option. I don't have it anymore. People on Windows 11 should have it, and if you have a really good PC, you should have it on Windows 10. I personally run Windows 10 because it's better for FPS in Fortnite. Next thing I want to talk about is your Windows version. Now, Windows 10, for me specifically, has been way easier for me to run and better for my FPS in every game that I play. But there are people with higher end PCs that say that Windows 11 has improved the performance. So it's up to you. Try out both. If your PC isn't compatible with Windows 11, obviously don't go to it. But if it is, then try it out, see if it works. You can always go back if you need to. The next thing you want to do is go to your settings again. You're going to want to go to gaming. And you want to turn on game mode. Now, game mode is a controversial topic for people that tweak PCs and optimize them, because some people say they get more FPS without game mode, some people say they get more FPS with game mode. If you have a lower end system like I do, or a medium range system, I suggest turning it on because it closes and uses less power for background apps. But that's just me. You could try it both ways, see if it works. The next thing you want to do is do a virus scan. Now, I'm not going to do one right now because I just did one, but to do a virus scan, you just want to go down here, you want to hit scan options, and you want to do a full scan. Viruses aren't always like abundant on your computer. Sometimes they just take power, sometimes they just take information, and you don't even know about it. They're not always visible on your computer, so you do a full scan, you find all the viruses. Most viruses are just malware and stuff that take information to sell it online. Many people have them on their computers and don't even know it. And it's not the biggest deal, it's not really a danger to you, but it is taking away from your performance in any game. The next thing you want to do is go to your Epic Games launcher. Go to your library. Scroll down to your Fortnite installation. Go to options and make sure you have high resolution textures downloaded. This will download all the textures for Fortnite in a high resolution. This way you can just take it right off your SSD or your hard drive and put it into the game. If you have a hard drive and not an SSD, this feature might not give you more FPS. It might just make your game look funky, but it's worked for me. I have an SSD, I don't have a hard drive, but if you do have a hard drive, test it out if you get less FPS. Now, this will spike your ping for the first day or two that you use it because it will be downloading textures from the game, ones that aren't included in the 8 gigs. The 8 gigs are the basic textures for the game, but you might run into some textures that you don't have downloaded, and we'll get into that in the game. The next thing you want to do is open your Fortnite and actually boot it up. If your PC does crash when you boot up Fortnite after we made these changes, then go back to where we accelerated Fortnite in our GPU and just unaccelerate it. That means that your GPU can't handle acceleration. So I suggest not having any apps accelerated on it. If you don't have a GPU, then I don't recommend doing that either, or having anything accelerated on there, because then it's running off your CPU. If you don't have a GPU and you're playing on a desktop computer that you can put a GPU in, I recommend investing in a GPU, just because it's a whole lot better for gaming in general, even if it is a low-end one. Now, the next thing you want to do is go into your Fortnite settings. You want to make sure you're on performance mode. I know a lot of people say that DirectX 11 or 12 is better on Unreal Engine 5. It is better, but it's not the best. Performance mode is still the best option, especially if you have more than 8 gigs of RAM. If you have less than 8 gigs of RAM, I still recommend it, but I recommend going on low meshes instead of high meshes. Now, make sure your game is on full screen. A lot of people have it on windowed full screen for some reason. I don't know why, but full screen will get you the most FPS because it closes the rendering of your desktop in the background. This way you can get more FPS from that. The next thing I recommend is your 3D resolution. I recommend going down by 2. If you are really struggling with FPS, you're struggling to get even 120, I recommend going to 90. But that's all I would go before doing this next tip. My next tip is to go up here and change your resolution down from this base. This won't look as bad as it does when you lower this all the way, but it will still look visibly worse. Now, back to those downloading textures. You want to have auto download high resolution textures on. This will download the textures from the game. You will lag like the other tip. This is in addition to that download, but you want to have all the textures you can downloaded. This way you can just take it right from your hard drive or your SSD and put it into the game instead of rendering it every time you see it. In order to have this actually give you an FPS boost, you want to have it on high or epic instead of having it on medium or low, because these aren't high resolution. High and epic are high resolution, so in order to actually use the textures, you have to have it on higher epic. The next thing you want to do is you want to have your meshes on low. If you have a good GPU and a bad CPU, keep it on low. If you have a good CPU and a bad GPU, put it on high. If you have more than 8 gigs of RAM in your PC, put it on high. If you have 8 gigs of RAM exactly, put it on low. So basically, if you have 8 gigs of RAM, put it on low. If you have 16, put it on high. My next tip is one that's really common. Go turn off your replays. If you don't use them, obviously if you make cinematics or stuff like that, you can turn them on. But if you're just playing competitively, turn these off. You do not need replays. I know a lot of tips for Fortnite are like VOD review. Replays kill your performance. It's basically recording your game inside your game, even if you have a clipping software. And it's rendering it more because it renders the whole game instead of just rendering what you're seeing. Now, if you don't want your game to look terrible on these resolutions, I recommend going on stretch res. I know a lot of people hate stretch res, but I find it really easy to aim. I'm not on stretch res because I came off of it. I'm not on stretch res currently, but I used to be. And it gives you about 20 more FPS depending on how low you go for the stretch res. Basically how stretched you want your game to be. But if you go super stretched, you get easily 100 plus FPS. The next thing is, if you insist on having your graphic quality, I suggest going to DirectX 12 or 11 depending on your GPU. If you have a medium end GPU, I recommend going to DirectX 12. If you have a very low end GPU, I recommend DirectX 11. If you go into DirectX 11, DirectX 12 has DLSS. Now, DLSS basically renders the resolution of the game in a lower resolution and upscales it. It looks a little bit worse, but it does not look that much worse. If you really struggle with getting FPS, you should go on DirectX 12 and turn on DLSS to the best quality. Keep everything on low. But this only works if you have an RTX card. So if you have a 2060 is the only time I would tell you to go to DirectX 12 and turn on DLSS. Other times I recommend performance mode all the way. Performance mode is a great addition to the game. It really helps with low-end PCs. The next thing I'm going to talk about is your clocking speed for your RAM. Now, a lot of RAM out of the box does not clock at the advertised speed. There are tons of videos on the internet on how to clock your RAM. You have to go into your PC BIOS, which I cannot do while recording right now, but there are tons of videos to go look at it. Now let's talk about some extreme methods to get more FPS. If you really have a low-end computer and you are not being able to crack 120 frames, then I recommend, there are 3 things that I recommend, and they're all overclocking. Overclocking your GPU is only if your GPU usage is above 60% and you're not getting 60 FPS. I do not recommend overclocking your GPU by any means, especially not for Fortnite. But you can if you want to, if you feel you're okay with doing that. But it can ruin your GPU. The next thing is overclocking your CPU. This is a little more dangerous than overclocking your GPU, because your CPU really holds like your whole computer together. You don't really need a GPU to run a computer. You do need a CPU. You can overclock this. This will get you more performance in game for sure, but it will definitely kill your CPU over time. The next thing is to overclock your RAM. You could overclock your RAM. It won't do a whole lot unless you're on performance mode, and it still won't do that much if you're on performance mode. Maybe 20 more frames. Maybe. But with that said, that will conclude this video. If these tips did work for you, I suggest dropping a like and subscribing. I upload gameplay tips, performance tips, and ping tips all the time.